In December 1984, the world's worst industrial accident happened here. This factory released a chemical cloud that killed thousands of people in just a few terrifying hours. The accident happened because of a chemical reaction that took place in this tank. A reaction that led to one of the biggest man-made disasters in history. What happened here were seconds that shocked the entire world. Disasters don't just happen. They're the result of a sequence of events locked together in time. The science behind what went wrong is hidden in these seismic seconds. The city of Bhopal lies on the edge of a large lake, almost exactly in the center of India. It is the capital of the region and is growing at a phenomenal rate. With a population of over 1.4 million, this is a busy, bustling and vibrant place. But on the 3rd of December 1984, Bhopal was the scene of a catastrophe on an unprecedented scale, as at least 3,000 people choked to death in a cloud of gas. Many times that number survived that night, only to have their health and livelihoods wrecked, while compensation claims and legal battles continue to rage. The killer chemical was something called methyl isocyanate, or MIC for short, and it came from this plant built at the edge of the city. It has been sealed off from the outside world for over 16 years, preserved by the Indian government as it investigated the cause of the disaster. Perhaps the most chilling artifact here is the actual vessel from which the poison escaped, now dug up from its original underground location. The MIC was released due to an unforeseen and uncontrollable chemical reaction. To explain how it is thought to have happened, several workers at the factory agreed to revisit it for the first time since that terrible night in December 1984.
I joined Union Carbide in 1971, where there was actually nothing anywhere. There were just a few small plants. By 1983, we had built this up into one of the most efficient and safe chemical complexes in India. But standards had been deteriorating for some time. And I was being shunted from department to department. I was in safety, then I was transferred to maintenance, at which point of time I decided to quit. In my leaving interview, I mentioned to the management that they are in for trouble if they don't pull up their socks. And that's exactly what happened a year later.
Built by Union Carbide, a giant multinational corporation, the factory manufactured pesticide, desperately needed as India struggled to produce enough food to cope with a population explosion. Sevin, as the pesticide was called, works by attacking the nervous system of insects, and its production requires some very dangerous chemicals. On that dreadful night in December, those chemicals got out of control. The first person to notice that something was wrong, something that was to lead to the biggest chemical accident in history, was a technician called V.N. Singh.
This was our control room, but it looked very different then when it was all quite new. I ran over to the pressure gauge and it went right off the scale.
Outside, 40 meters away, the storage tank was about to deliver its deadly load. It was 15 minutes past midnight. The contents of this tank represent the triumph of profits over safety, To understand how this happened, we need to wind the clock back 4 hours. The events that led to the contamination of the tank are still disputed, but the findings of the Indian government point to a disaster that started at approximately 8:15 that December evening, when a plant worker began some routine maintenance. He connected a water hose to part of the plant's maze of pipework. Keeping the system clean was vital, as contaminants could easily be formed during processing. Dirt was supposed to flush out of the system through drainage nozzles, a process that would sometimes take hours. Almost immediately, something began to go wrong. He had unwittingly started a sequence of events that would end with the deaths of thousands.